Mr. Sal Capaccio joining us here as we get ready for roster cuts. The Bills, of course, like every team in the NFL, going to get down to 53 for the first time. And then we'll see where things go from there. And Sal joins us on the West Her Hotline. Good morning, Sal.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm calling it Tyrell Shavers Day, but I'm putting an asterisk on that as pending, Of all the players, won't he make the roster? I don't know if there's another player that fans might be a little bit more invested in or having more of an opinion on. We'll see how it shakes out. And if he does or doesn't, I don't think it makes or breaks anything. But, people are invested, and they watch the preseason. And I feel like a story for a guy that's been here for a couple of preseasons, doing everything they ask. Whatever. He might be the guy that people are most invested in is all.
I don't disagree. I think Tyrell Shavers is number one on that list. As far as people and fans thinking, he deserves a spot, he should make it. They're invested in him, as you said, from that aspect. I think, and I have him. I did post a projected 53-man roster, which I was just looking over a little while ago this morning, which I did this a couple days ago. The Bills had some releases. Then we had the Jordan Phillips stuff happen. I still haven't moved off of where I am on the 53-man roster, though. I think it would be the exact same as I posted the other day. And I have Tyrell Shavers making it. I think that he's done enough. They've put him on enough special teams for me to see they're showing or at least seeing if he can play there. The question is, do they feel he did it well enough? And we don't know that, so I have him making it. I think the other guy, actually, if there's another guy on this team like that, it's Jimmy Charlo. I'm not putting Jimmy Charlo on my 53-man roster, though, and I don't think he makes it. He has been a great story, and I think he has really proven that he can be a practice squad player. And then maybe his career gets him to the 53-man roster at some point, but that's the other guy I think that fans have really latched onto because of some of the plays he's made. I don't see a path for him with Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, Dorian Williams, Joe Andreessen, Shaq Thompson.
No.
I just don't think there's a spot for him at linebacker. So I think those are the two guys, and I think Shavers has made it. To me, he's done enough. I don't see Jimmy Charlo making it.
Okay. Sal's got his roster projection up at WGR550.com. Sal, before anything else, you had the clarifying tweet about Jordan Phillips and exactly how things are going to work. So one of the things we talked about this morning, Sal, was I feel like we had an overreaction only in hindsight, right? In the moment, it was on the 53. That seems kind of drastic. And I think that overreaction now tells a little bit of a story, but tell us exactly how this works, why this works at Phillips, why the report was he'll sign at the 53, but he ultimately won't be on the 53.
So this is all about timing and how the NFL works with its calendars, okay? And I think that's where a lot of this confusion probably came from immediately. Now, I can't speak for anybody who reported that he was going to sign on the 53-man roster. That was a report, but that is not actually what's happening. So, but I do understand why it would get confused if he's going to sign in the active roster, which is true. So let me explain how that works. Right now, until 4 p.m. today, there is no practice squad. There is not a practice squad in the offseason. There is no practice squad. All there is on every NFL team is a 90-man roster. Okay, 91 with international, but 90-man roster on every NFL team. Once 4 p.m. hits today, there is only a 53-man roster on every NFL team, plus teams can begin signing up to 17 with an international player, practice squad players. Now, there's some nuance there because you have to wait for guys to clear waivers. So really, you get a full day, right? But after 4 p.m. today, it's 53 on the active roster. And then by tomorrow in the afternoon, it's another 17 on the practice squad. Okay, so for Jordan Phillips, if they want to sign him to the active roster, that's 90 guys as of today. Once today happens, he's coming in, he's going to sign. They will then release him, and they will sign him back to the practice squad because there is not a spot for him on the 53-man roster. The reason why he's signing now, and he did sign, by the way, the reason why he signed now is because it gets him a jump start, an extra day with space on the roster. Get in the facility, start working out, get in your team meetings, get with your coaches, get with your teammates. He already knows guys, right? But that's why he's already signed to the 90-man roster, because they have space. But once 4 o'clock comes around today, there is no more space. So they'll release him, and then they'll bring him back in the organization as a member of the practice squad.
Okay. What do you think this says about Phillips, their room, their practice squad, understanding that he's practice squad, and now there could, of course, be elevations, right? Practice squad players are somewhat regularly elevated. What's the takeaway on all this?
I really thought when everything happened that this meant something for either Daquan Jones, Dwayne Carter, or Larry Ogunjobi. But they never needed a roster spot for Larry Ogunjobi. The only thing about him would be the savings, right? Because, yes, he's going to be suspended, but his salary's still guaranteed week 1 because he's a vested veteran. You're still saving money if you release him salary cap-wise. But they don't need the roster spot. They wouldn't have to actually bring a guy on the roster in order to do that. But now this changes the equation. Maybe that is what it's for. Maybe because you're going to move off him, and now you can start having Jordan Phillips kind of sort of take his place, if that makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. Because instead of having a suspended guy who you're paying, you're now, who's counting on your cap, who can't practice with you. Maybe now you just got a guy who's going to be practicing with you, and he's not suspended, and if you need him, you can elevate him from the practice squad. So I get more towards maybe this does mean something for Larry Ogunjobi. I still think, sure, could it be possible that Daquan Jones saving $5.5 million, that they decide at the end of the day, you know what, we've seen enough from our young guys, let's move on from him, let's save it, and now we have Jordan Phillips here to fill that void as a practice squad guy. We can elevate and see, have enough guys in the roster because we only have to keep 4 and then 5 on game day. Could it mean something still for Dwayne Carter? Maybe they haven't seen enough from him, but they really like the other 2 young guys. Sure. It's moved the needle a little bit for me on Larry Ogunjobi, simply because if you think about Ogunjobi's situation, they could save the salary cap space by releasing him, and then they would still have a guy in the facility working with the team for the next several weeks. But it doesn't have to because, again, you could also just stash Ogunjobi away and not have to worry about him and still have an extra guy there in Jordan Phillips.
For Ogunjobi as a cut candidate, you could, like you said, you could stash him for a couple of weeks. You could make that call in week 6 or 7 or 8.
You can, but the difference is his salary is because he's a vested veteran, because he's been because he's been in the league 4 years. If he's on the week 1 roster in any capacity, and the way I understand it, including suspension, his salary is guaranteed for the year.
Okay.
So if you release him, it's not guaranteed for the year. So that's the cash. And cash matters at this time of year, by the way, for every team. It's not just the Buffalo Bills, not like being cheap. Every team, it matters. The cash you're paying out, especially after week 1 with guaranteed salaries and understanding that. Cash matters right now. Cap matters, of course, right? So, yes, Jeremy, they could stash him roster-wise because he's going to be stashed anyway. He's going to move to a suspended list today at 4 p.m. if he's still on the roster. He's going to be him and Michael Hoyt. They'll be suspended for 6 games. And then after 4 weeks, they can begin practicing. They don't count on the 53. Then you can just decide to make your decision. And sure, you could do that and say, hey, why would we want to move on from the guy? We got a guy coming back in 6 weeks. No doubt they could do something like that. I'm just trying to read the tea leaves on, but what if they say, you know what, instead of having that, we got a guy who's going to be here. He's going to help us, and we can save that cash and salary cap.
How much should we explore this possibility, Sal, of Ogunjobi being cut, do you think?
I think it's something that could happen. I don't know. I mean, it's tough to say because him and Michael Hoyt really, they played a lot in the preseason because they weren't going to get those reps, right? They're not going to get those reps for the next several weeks. And normally when guys play a lot in the preseason, late in the games, you think, okay, they're going to get cut. But that's not the case with these guys necessarily because Michael Hoyt was really good, by the way, in the preseason. I mean, he's going to help this defense, right?
I thought Michael Hoyt was very noticeable in the preseason, and I don't know that anybody's really talked much about Ogunjobi at any point this preseason or camp.
Right, and that's where I go, Jeremy, which is, have they seen enough from the young guys where they say, you know what, yeah, we could just stash him, but that means guaranteeing his salary, counting on the cap. We could also just move on right now and say, all right, we've seen enough from the young guys we brought in and we drafted. And, let's remember, they signed Larry Ogunjobi in March. They find out about the suspension. They go and draft 2 defensive tackles a month later. Right? That, to me, was always a signal of, let's see where this goes. So, again, I don't know if it's going to happen. You're asking me, how much we should read into it. I just think you should keep it open to a possibility.
Okay. And on cap hits on Ogunjobi, what happens there in terms of the money they gave him versus his contract? Do you have any idea on that? They save a little bit this year, but there are hits, right? There's dead money.
Well, the suspension makes it weird, right, Sal, with him?
So if he's cut today, it's a post June 1 cut. They would save $1.2 million on the cap. They're still going to have to count $2.8 million in dead money that's already spent. The way it works in the NFL is you get basically paid for the games that you play. His salary will be prorated 1/17 of the games that he plays, every game that he plays, right? That would happen. But what I don't know is because I don't have the details of his actual contract if they put something in there about this, right? Because I know that there was some sort of if you listen to Brandon Beane when they signed him, when they signed him, he said, we knew that they had to kind of revisit him, and they still worked it out, right? Because they didn't really have any, he said, we didn't have any options at the time. We had looked and said, okay, we want this guy. So we'll see. So I guess I'll just go by what the base would be here, what the basics would be, instead of getting into the details that we don't know those finer details, which would be they would save 1.2, but you're still counting over $2.5 million of dead cap money. But that's regardless of he's on the team or not.
Yeah. Do we know enough, Sal, about how tight they are against the cap? Like, I think you can open Spot Track and look at how they have the least cap space in the league going into this process. Like, should we be mentally prepared for somebody that would, like you mentioned Daquan Jones after the Jordan Phillips, bringing him back, like somebody like that where they would save a good amount of money, like that is on the way because they're so tight against the cap?
Yeah, I think they have to do something like that. So the other thing that's happening today is right now, guys, only the top 51 salary cap hits count, right? It's top 51 rule up until 4 o'clock today. As of 4 o'clock today, the top 53 count, you're adding a good $1.5 million, $2 million to your salary cap. That's really what the number 52 and 53 guys are going to be making, maybe a little bit less than that. But let's say, well, if you add it up, it's about $1 million, $1.5 million, somewhere in there, maybe even a little bit more. So you're going to have money for that. I've had a lot of people say to me, how can the Bills do anything right now? They're $600,000 over the cap. Well, they're not. Nobody's over the cap right now. You can't operate over the cap. You're not allowed to be. They have a little bit of money right now, and therefore they can sign a guy like Jordan Phillips right now, 2-way contract, because that counts on the cap if he's in under 51 and all that. They can do that. But once 4 o'clock hits today, that's when, yes, they're going to have to be under the cap. And I think what it is when you read those numbers, it's a projection. So, Joe, I think that they have a little over $1 million in space, I think, right now. But it's a projection of they're going to be over the cap as of 4 p.m. today unless they make some moves. That has to be releasing people. There's always going to be guys that are going to save some money releasing, and that could be bottom of the end of the roster guys. It could be guys making more money. It could be a restructure of a contract. It could be an extension of a contract. There could be a lot of things like that could be on the table today, but they're going to have to do something money-wise to make sure they're cap compliant and have, by the way, a little bit of operating room throughout the season.
Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline. Sal, we've got a call to get to in a moment here, but I want to ask you one more thing. I saw Lewis Seen was released by the Eagles. I saw Pooh Paul, which is a guy the Bills had in the pre-draft process a number of visits with a linebacker that actually, Joe, is one of the reasons I bet they would draft linebacker ahead of receiver. Yeah. Or sorry, ahead of running back, but they didn't. Are there names you're kind of looking for like that too, where, hey, a guy got drafted in the late rounds and the Bills might have liked him but didn't get to that player, where they could snag a guy for a practice squad from another team like that?
Sure. I mean, there could be guys like that you mentioned that, you've seen. Lewis Seen's an interesting one, but I look now at Shaq Thompson and the role he's been playing for the Bills and thinking, okay, do you need a guy like Lewis Seen? Maybe, though, because he could be a safety by trade. Remember last year when he was on the practice squad until he bolted, he was working a lot at linebacker, right? So do you really need that? I think they have kind of that guy now on the team. They also groomed him for several months, and then all of a sudden he left suddenly to go to the Eagles. So maybe there's like, hey, we don't want to do that again, right? You don't want to lose a guy at the end after you put all that time and effort into him. A guy like Pooh Paul, sure. I mean, I could see it, but you have to look at what the roster is now. Like, are those guys? Did the team kind of move on from that thought from a guy because they already have what they have in the roster now, right? Is how you have to kind of look at it here. Let's see what happens. Is there another wide receiver that all of a sudden we're going, wait a minute, they claim that guy and now suddenly Tyrell Shavers isn't on the roster or something like that, right? I mean, I think that could always be the case when you're looking around the league. That's the other thing about today. Let's remember, just want to remind everybody, at 4 p.m. today, at some point, now last year they made the actual official announcements at like 5:15, I looked it up, but sometime this afternoon, 4 p.m., 5 p.m., whatever it is, when you find out, all the cuts, there's going to be a guy or two that makes the roster that honestly his spot might not be secure because over the next 24 hours after that, claims are going to come in. If the Bills feel there's a guy out there that they really want, they put a claim in, well, someone's got to go. So, like, a guy could literally make the roster today and then be released tomorrow because they found somebody better on the waiver wire, they feel.
And then there's the alternative where they have guys wait in the parking lot. Is Reed Ferguson going to have to wait in the parking lot again? Is he the one that has to do that?
I don't think so. I mean, yes, you could do that, Jeremy, but here's why it's less likely now. They changed the rule 2 years ago. It used to be where if you put a guy in IR, or if you wanted a guy in IR to miss only a few weeks, you have to make the 53, so you got to have a spot for him. Then you tell Reed Ferguson, hey, we got to release you to make room for this guy. And then you put the guy in IR the next day, and then you re-sign Reed. But now the rule is you get 2 guys to do that with. You don't have to have on the 53. That, to me, is Max Hairston. Max Hairston today is probably going to go on IR to return. He'll come back in 4 weeks. You do not have to have him on the 53. So you don't have to have a spot for him and go tell Reed or somebody else, go sit in the parking lot, and we'll re-sign you tomorrow. Now, you could, if you have enough guys, if you have more than 2 that you want to do that with, I just can't think of more than 2 they'd want to do that with, but there could possibly be the case there.
There's many years, Sal, that they've ended up trading a guy at the end. Bam Johnson, I'm thinking of for this, or Russ Bodine, really depth players that they've traded around this time of year. Is there any position or guy that you're thinking about today that maybe could be traded instead of cut?
Yeah, I look at the offensive line, right? Is there enough room for all the guys on the back end? Ryan Vandermark, Chase Lunt, who they just drafted, probably not a trade candidate, but you never know right there, right? Tylon Grable, who's been in concussion protocol but was the swing tackle. I would say Vandermark would be a guy who, since he's playing, he's been out on the field, he's not, injured. Is that a guy they look at and say, can we keep him? Does he have value? Is he going to have value to us? Right now, he might have a lot of value to the Bills because of the injuries around the offensive line. But maybe they feel that they have enough there, and he could fetch them something. That's a guy that I could look at. Tylon Grable's another guy I could look at in that scenario, but he has been in concussion protocol. And then I look at defensive end. Is A.J. Epinesa a guy? How about Javon Solomon, a second-year guy? That was Bam Johnson. Bam Johnson was in his second year, I think, maybe third year. But, is there a young guy? Is there enough room for Javon Solomon and A.J. Epinesa, along with Greg Rousseau, Joey Bosa, Landon Jackson, who you're keeping, right? Michael Hoyt is suspended. We know that. So that allows the team to keep 5 defensive ends. Hoyt would be the 6th. So maybe you don't have to do something like that. But if you feel that your roster's in a spot where you only want to keep 4, again, I'll go back to, is Dwayne Carter a young guy that was playing deep into Saturday night, by the way, guys? Yeah. Right? Is there something to read into that about him? So I just think there's guys around the roster who you never know, and you could see something like that could move the needle.
Joe had something earlier about Dwayne Carter. Like, it'd be the earliest they've given up on a guy in day 2. Like Boogie Basham got 2 seasons. Carter, yeah. If that were to happen, Sal, that'd be a really fast kind of, cut and run.
It would, and as I sit here right now, I'm not going to tell you I predict that it's going to happen, but I just look at the numbers and say, what are you going to do? I mean, you could keep 5, there's no doubt, but here's your 5 right now. Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, Dwayne Carter, TJ Sanders, Deion Walker. I mean, Ed Oliver's not going anywhere. TJ Sanders and Deion Walker aren't going anywhere. I don't think you're getting anything for Daquan Jones, but he is a cut candidate to me because he's $5.5 million. But then you have Dwayne Carter. It could be a trade candidate. Possibly, but also you could say, no. We need these guys. Like, you have Larry Ogunjobi suspended. You have Jordan Phillips coming in the practice squad who hasn't had a full offseason. Like, we're playing the Baltimore Ravens week 1, right? Yeah. We need all hands on deck. So I think you could look at a lot of different ways of your Brandon Beane.
Sal Capaccio on the Western Highland. Let's get a call in here from Buff in Dallas. Hey, Buff, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Sal, I got a question. Since Beane has been here, every pick, man, I say from every round just about, it's been developmental player. Is there a reason? Is that a scout thing? Is just a Beane thing, being frugal, or I don't know.
I don't know. What do you mean?
No,
I'm sorry. I don't understand the question. What do you mean? Everybody's developed well, or has been just picked to develop?
He said developmental. And thanks, Buff. I mean, I think maybe I'll try to jump in on what he might be trying to say here, which is like the Bills, they like to take their tools guys, right? That's not new, whether that's, Josh Allen is a tools guy, or Dawson Knox didn't catch a touchdown in college, or Devin Singletary never caught the ball. Like they draft traits, might be what he's kind of getting at here, Sal. I don't know if you would agree with that. Like, they're always looking for projects or developmental players on the defensive line, which is, also part of the game. You're coming into the NFL as a college player. You've got work to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't say they just look for projects, right? I mean, like, sure, you take a flyer on a guy later. I think almost all guys, I think all teams are like this. I mean, unless you're picking in the top 10 of the draft and a guy's you got to have him play right away. He's on your team and you got to have him come in. It's tough in the NFL to come in right away. Sure, you'd love that. I don't think they're just saying we're only going to draft Dalton Kincaid to develop him or Keon Coleman to develop him. These guys were relied on to play their rookie year. Dalton Kincaid he broke records as far as rookies, to come in and play. And I know that it didn't go as well his second year. So I don't know. I mean, sure. I think there's 2 parts of it, though, to answer the question overall, which is if you can draft a guy who can play right now, then you play him. And if he's good enough, you play him. Christian Benford played right away. Right? I mean, like maybe they expected him to be a developmental guy. I bet you they expected Kyrie Elam to play right away, but it didn't, so you had to try to develop him, and it never worked out. But the second part of that is you draft a guy, you have him under contract for 4 years, and your job is to develop him.
Yeah.
So it's not that you're only drafting to develop. You're drafting him with an eye on we're going to play him when he's ready, but our job is to develop the guy to play. Speaking
of corners, Tre'Davious White, the story there?
Yeah, we'll find out a little bit more. Maybe today gives us a little clarity, right? I mean, at 4 p.m. today, is it possible Tre'Davious White goes on an IR to return? Sure, if his injury is significant enough where they feel that he's got to miss some time.
If that's the case, Sal, that might be a little scary. Tre'Davious White as their corner 2 here, if he's going to miss 3-4 weeks, whatever. IR to return would be. Is there a minimum on that?
4 games.
Yeah.
So that's Max Harrison. To me, is going to go on IR to return. He'll miss 4 games, and he can't practice either until those 4 weeks are up, and then you can return after that. But you're right about that. It would be scary because then what do you do? And I've said for a few days here that if that's the case, I think Dane Jackson squarely becomes a viable starting option for this team. Now, when I say viable, I know fans are like, what do you mean? He shouldn't be starting. But that's probably the guy they turn to. It could be Jamarcus Ingram, but it's one of those two. I don't think you're plucking everybody. Well, go get Stephon Gilmore. Go get Russell Douglas. Dude, there's a game in a week and a half, right? I mean, I don't think that that's going to happen. So I think that's where that is. Now, if Tre'Davious White is on the active roster and nothing happens with him at 4 p.m. today, that's a good sigh of relief for everybody, which means that he's hopefully going to be ready for week 1. It doesn't mean he has to be ready for week 1, though. The Bills could say, you know what, it is a 1 or 2 week injury, and we're going to get him back soon after that, so we don't want to, put him on IR. We'll find out. Now, the way the calendar works is today is roster moves, right? We'll find out at some point today. You could just look down your phone and bam, the Bills make a roster move. By 4 p.m. today, they have to have everything done. 53-man roster. They start to formulate the practice squad. Guys who are free agents immediately. Guys who are waivers have to wait till tomorrow. Tomorrow, because they have to wait for all the waivers to clear and guys to be on their team, they'll do that. And then Brandon Beane will speak to the media at 2:30 p.m. tomorrow. So that's when we're going to get more information maybe on Tre'Davious White if we don't already know by 4 p.m. today. That's our next chance to know from Brandon Beane about the roster, his thoughts, and Tre'Davious White. At 3 o'clock, then the team's going on the practice field with their roster. Like, that's it. 3 o'clock tomorrow is the first time we're going to see the actual 2025 Buffalo Bills with their entire 53-man roster and presumably mostly 16, 17-man practice squad. And then, it's rock and roll time.
Very good. Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline. Sal will be, locked in all day today on Twitter, on the air, just to find out how things go today on Cutdown Day.
I'll be in for Extra Point Show at 10 o'clock. Andy Young's going to join me at 11 from Spectrum News.
Very good. Sal, what'd you do yesterday? Coaches versus Cancer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was great. It was Bartlett Country Club. It poured for like the first 5 holes. It was soaked, but then it stopped and it was great. It's a great. I don't know if you played down there, Jeremy. It's a really great course.
I have not.
I mean, it's a hidden gem down in Olean, and do it every year, and I go down there, and it was a dinner on Sunday night, and then we played golf on Monday, and then do a little awards and dinner afterwards on Monday night. And Fran Duffney was the keynote speaker, longtime college basketball coach and Hall of Famer at several schools. What was really cool to me, though, I have to say this. What's really awesome about this event, and I've met a lot of great people and college basketball coaches. And Jeremy, I know you're a big college basketball fan. I'm a big college basketball fan. This is a kind of event like you're going like, man, I can't believe I'm sitting with this person or talking with this person, right? Who's been at these things. And we know Woj is down at Bonnet now, and I saw him and Jim Barron. But what's really cool, like yesterday, in this dinner room that I'm emceeing for, you have Mark Schmidt at St. Bonaventure, and there's George Halkovich of UB and his staff. And there's Jim Christian at Canisius and his staff. And there's Greg Paulus at Niagara and his staff. And they're all together. And they're competitors and rivals in a lot of ways. But they're coming together for this cause, right? And they're all in the same room. And they're all raising money for this cause. And I think that's super cool.
Yeah. Very cool. Thank you, Sal. We'll see you at 10.
Got it, man.
Sal Capaccio coming in 10 o'clock for the Northtown Automotive Extra Point Show.